Ramadan kicks off at the end of February, year after year. This month brings riots, terror attacks, and violent incitement driven by extremists who use religion as a cover for chaos. While it's meant to be a time of prayer, reflection, and fasting for Muslims around the world, in Israel, it's something else entirely. As this year's Ramadan approaches, Israelis aren't preparing for a peaceful holiday. They're bracing for a wave of terror. Right now, we're in a ceasefire deal, but things in Judea and Samaria are already on fire. Hundreds of terrorist prisoners have been released, and instead of keeping quiet, they're being celebrated like heroes, only making things worse. Hamas is regrouping, and global extremism is spreading. Radical groups are calling for mass riots in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. All signs point to a Ramadan that could spiral out of control fast. So, what can we expect this year? And how is Israel preparing for what could be a dangerous and explosive Ramadan? Before we take a closer look, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Help us get the truth out. The more people understand what's really happening, the harder it is for terror and incitement to win. I'm here in the old city of Jerusalem, where Israeli Jews and Muslims live, work, and pray side by side. Jews at the Western Wall and Muslims at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. During Ramadan, Muslims fast from dawn to sunset. The fast is broken each evening with iftar, a meal often starting with dates and water, followed by larger gatherings with family and friends. The Quran does not designate Ramadan as a time of war or violence. Ramadan is supposed to be a time of prayer, fasting, and reflection. But here in Israel, Ramadan is a time of violence. Violence at the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan is often the result of deliberate provocation by extremist terrorist groups who use the religious atmosphere to incite riots and clashes. Every year, radical Palestinian factions, including Hamas and the Islamic movement in Israel, call on worshippers to defend Al-Aqsa against a so-called Israeli threat. Despite Israel making no moves against the mosque, these groups stockpile weapons, fireworks, and rocks inside the mosque, preparing for violent confrontations with the Israeli police. Israeli forces respond to maintain order. The situation escalates, and the images are spread globally to fuel more incitement. Meanwhile, Hamas and other terrorist organizations use these clashes as an excuse to launch rocket attacks from Gaza, sparking wider conflicts. They claim to be defending Al-Aqsa, but in reality, they exploit Ramadan to rally support, escalate tensions, and provoke violent uprising. This cycle repeats year after year. History shows again and again, terror groups and hostile regimes have used Ramadan to launch attacks. In 1973, Egypt and Syria started the Yom Kippur War, hitting Israel with a surprise attack while Jews were fasting on Yom Kippur. And it was also called the Ramadan War. Tomer, let's discuss the history of all the terror attacks that took place in Israel during the months of Ramadan. So on June 8, 2016, during the first week of Ramadan, 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire at Tel Aviv's Sarona market, resulting in the deaths of 4 Israeli civilians and injured several others. So now 2017. So on June 16, during Ramadan, 3 Palestinian attackers launched coordinated assaults in Jerusalem's Old City.
Here?
Yeah. 2 assailants opened fire on Israel's police officers, while a third stabbed a 23-year-old border police officer. Her name was Hadass Malkia. Later, she died from her wounds, Tomer. In 2022, on April 29th, during the last Friday of Ramadan, a 23-year-old Israeli security guard was killed in a drive-by shooting at the Israeli town of Ariel. On April 5th, 2023, the Israeli police conducted a raid at the Al-Aqsa Mosque after reports of Palestinians barricading themselves inside. Following the events in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Palestinian militants fired rockets into Israel from the Gaza Strip and from Lebanon as well. And in April 7, 2023, 3 Israeli soldiers were injured in a car ramming attack near the village of Beit Umar, northwest of Hebron. Last year, 2024, it was during Ramadan that Iran launched a direct attack on Israel, firing over 300 missiles and drones in what became its first ever direct strike on Israeli territory. Thanks to Israel's air defenses and help from allies like the United States and the United Kingdom, 99% of the attacks were intercepted. But the message was clear: Ramadan is a time of jihad, violence, and war. Now, as Ramadan 2025 approaches, there are serious concerns about what could go wrong. So guys, this is the part where I usually discuss these things with Mati Shoshani, but he's currently on vacation as part of the IDF military reserve in Judea and Samaria. So maybe I'll call him now. Just kidding about the vacation part, by the way. Mati, are you there?
I'm here, Yair. I'm here in reserves in northern Judea.
Mati, we are now recording the episode of Boots on the Ground Report. And, you know, this is the part where we're discussing this situation. And I wanted to ask you about this holy month of Ramadan.
Well, Ramadan's serious business. Both you and I, we've done several rounds in Judea and Samaria. For me, this is the second Ramadan in a row. It's interesting because the Israeli government allows most years tens of thousands of Palestinians from Hebron, from Bethlehem, from even Ramallah, and in past years, by the way, from Gaza, to enter into Jerusalem to pray during the month of Ramadan. And sadly, they do pray, but they also riot violently. It's a very tense month. There's a rise and a serious uptick when it comes to terrorism attacks. There's an uptick when it comes to criminal activity too in Judea and Samaria. And there's a huge rise in the level of readiness that the army, the border police, and Israeli police carry throughout the season.
But it wasn't supposed to be a time of riots and wars. This is like a holy month. Why is it turning into this focal point of extremism and tensions?
I think the answer to that is the fact that here in the Middle East, and I think everywhere, religion has been politicized and it's been hijacked by extremists. So what should have been a time of retrospect and prayer and fasting now is a battle cry to Muslim people, especially in Israel, to rally to the flag, let's call it, of Al-Aqsa, of the Temple Mount. We as Jews are not allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. One of my neighbors and friends, by the way, is a policeman who serves in the Old City. The stories you hear, they make the hair on the back of your back stand up.
I don't have any hairs on the back of my back, by the way, Mati.
They have enough for both of us, so anyway. I think the expression is the back of your neck. Anyway, it's instead of it's like this peaceful season, the Ramadan is a rallying cry to fight for Al-Aqsa, to fight against Israel, to fight against the Jewish government. For a person in uniform, Ramadan is a season where we're on high alert.
More now than ever before, because we have 2 very, very fragile ceasefires, and especially with Ramadan, I'm sure that Iran and all their proxies will want to rally up the Judean Samarian Palestinian terrorist groups in order to carry out attacks.
And when you think about what do the Iranians have left? They've lost Hamas, they've lost Hezbollah, they've lost their foothold in Syria, they've lost part of the Houthis, and they've lost their sense of retaliation when it comes to their ICBMs and their drone attacks against Israel. So what do they have left? They're in Samaria. They're pushing in weapons, they're pushing in funds, they're using social media, they're using bots, by the way, to incite young individuals to go in and carry out terrorist attacks. They're doing everything they can to directly and indirectly bring out acts of terrorism out of Judea and Samaria specifically. In Israel, I'd say the IDF at the same time has been anticipating this and working very hard to prevent that from happening within Judea and Samaria.
But also, at the same time that the IDF is preparing for the riots and for the tension and the terrorist attacks, Israel is allowing Muslim worshippers to go to the Temple Mount from all areas of this country. And the IDF is maintaining this balance of allowing freedom of worship to all religions, even now when we're under attack on multiple fronts.
I think there's this claim out there and this very false narrative where Israel prevents Muslim worshippers from praying at the Temple Mount. And I'd invite anyone who has that idea in their head to come to any of the border crossings from within Judea and Samaria into Israel proper and to one of the gates into the Temple Mount on one of the days of Ramadan and tell me that there's anyone preventing them from praying in the Temple Mount. There are literally tens of thousands. Again, these are people that are not Israeli citizens. They're residents of the Palestinian Authority that are allowed into Israel to pray in the Temple Mount in the heart of Jerusalem. So if ever there was freedom of religion anywhere, what other country in the world allows an enemy population to pray within their capital to a different religion?
During a war, Mati, this is the craziest thing, you know.
While trying to kill Israeli policemen in the Temple Mount, while rioting in Judea and Samaria. So again, you're not going to find this anywhere else in the world. It's only here in Israel.
A word of encouragement, how can people pray for this situation?
I think this season has proven, I say for myself included, how long-winded and how resilient the Israeli people are. We're fighting for what's right, and people around the world need to know that and join in and pray for. People say this as almost like jokingly, pray for peace in the Middle East. But there is a chance of peace in the Middle East if you're willing to fight to remove evil leadership.
Watch yourself, Mati, and I know it's very tough to fight a war in winter. It's all muddy, cold, wet. I mean, hope you stay warm and safe.
Have some knesset for me in the old city.
On my way, don't worry. Just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling. I'm happy again. You want to eat?
Yeah. I heard in Ramadan there is the best food in the city.
And I'm ready for love. Can I ask you a few questions?
Yair, the big boss with English.
Okay, good. I want to ask you a few questions on how do you celebrate Ramadan? Is it like a joyful month? Do you have a lot of family gatherings, eating?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Visiting each other, all the families, even neighbors. It's a holy month. You're asking God every minute, you pray every minute.
Really?
Yeah.
So are you excited? Are you going to have many people in your house during Ramadan this year?
Don't ask, it's often.
Oh, it's always, it's always. What are you selling here? Can you make me a really good juice? Maybe
Pomegranate, orange, or what did you
Mix.
have else? Mix.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids and 5 grandkids.
And more coming?
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Happy Ramadan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the drinks. As history shows us, Ramadan in Israel is generally a dangerous and unpredictable time. And yet, despite all of this yearly chaos, Israel has always and continues to go out of its way to support its Muslim citizens during Ramadan, making sure they can observe the holy month with ease and respect. At work, many businesses adjust schedules so Muslim employees can start earlier and finish earlier, making it easier to fast and be home for iftar, the evening meal. Schools and government offices in Arab communities also ease up the workloads, showing real respect for the holiday. And beyond that, Israeli organizations and volunteers step up big time, running food deliveries and aid campaigns to help Muslim families in need. Israel doesn't just allow religious freedom, it embraces it. Take the firing of the Ramadan cannon, a Muslim tradition marking the end of the daily fast. Israel keeps this tradition alive in Jerusalem, and even leaders like former Mayor Nir Barkat have joined in to fire the cannon themselves. Despite all the noise, Israel makes sure that its Muslim citizens can practice their faith freely and comfortably. אהלן.
كيف حالك؟
الحمد لله.
بالسعادة؟
כן.
دائما الحمد لله.
Can we ask you a few questions about all the sweets that people eat in Ramadan?
All the people,
Yeah.
Ramadan, atayef.
Everybody is eating this?
Everybody atayef.
Yeah? What do you like the most?
I am
Yeah, you.
Ba'lawi.
Baklawa.
Baklawa is professional.
So this is behind the scenes into the kitchen of this shop in the old city of Jerusalem. And they're making the traditional katayeb. Yeah, like a pancake. Yeah. And you eat it a lot in Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
Cheers. L'chaim. Oh wow, very good. I need a month of fasting after this, for sure. Israel is one of the only places in the Middle East where everyone can freely practice their religion, and nowhere is that clearer than here in Jerusalem. From church bells ringing to the Muslim call to prayer, every faith has its place. In a region where religious freedom is rare, Israel stands out as a place where all faiths thrive. It's a pity that Israel respects the concept of peace for Ramadan more than some of the extremists who claim to honor it. We pray that this year, Ramadan will truly be a time of peace, where those who choose to celebrate it peacefully can do so freely, and where Israel's national security won't be put at risk. So please pray for the peace during this time all over Israel, and especially in Jerusalem. May this Ramadan be meaningful in a real spiritual way, the way God intended for families to get together, to pray, to reflect, not for violence or incitement or war. And above all, please pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.